I feel like people who come to me who have done coaching with others will say, this isn't like other coaching. And it's because I really care about you as a person. I want those goals to be met because you want those goals. But I care that we are creating someone who has a joyful life, someone who knows themselves so well that maybe those goals will change or maybe bigger ones will show up. And that's really exciting to me. I care the fact that you want to grow your income, but I care more about the fact that you will be happy while you're growing that income. And oftentimes, especially those who own their own business or executives, they're not used to that. They're used to the push, push, push and not the hang on. I want to hear how this relates to a conversation you had with your mother when you were 12. And they're like, hi, I'm Vicki Baird, and I have created my successful business by helping other people become successful in their own lives. This podcast, Intuition, Your Success Compass, is the tool you've been looking for to find your due north. We all have a soul and we all have an internal knowing. And in this podcast, you will learn to combine what your soul knows, your human self's brilliant intelligence, and the connection to the desire to live a life that is fully successful in whatever that definition is for you. Sound good? Good. Now let's get to it. Thank you for joining me for another episode. Thank you for listening. If this is your first time, welcome. And I appreciate you being here. And of course, if you are someone who's been listening and who's been traveling along for the last 214 episodes, I am so grateful. I am blessed to be able to stand here, talk into a microphone, allow it to go out into the world and get the feedback on it and feel like we're connected. I think that's really important. And one of the reasons I'm doing this episode this week, because you could probably hear it in my voice, I'm smiling because I was cleaning out my closet, going through paperwork, and I know we're trying to be a paperless society, but I don't know about you, but I'm someone who has to have it in front of me. If I put it away and I don't put it on my calendar or in my to-do list, I forget it's there. I go on to something else. I feel like some of this is object impermanence and some of it is simply being present and losing the thread to things that I thought was so important half an hour ago. So while I was going through the paperwork and organizing and recycling and all of that, which I do quarterly, that is something I'm really good at. Quarterly, I go through files, I clear things out, I remove any notes I have that are no longer pertinent. I recycle. I put into yet another pile or file folder, actually, that hangs on my wall of things that I would like to get to or that seem exciting to me. So I was going through the paperwork and I found a printed out page that I had captured some questions that people had asked me on social media. And as I'm reading through them, I'm giggling a little bit because I love the questions. I love the interaction. There's no point in me being intuitive and being able to see things and not share with people. Well, there is a point. I'm going to back that up. There is a point. My soul is doing its journey to understand, what is this wiring? How can I best use it to help not only myself, but others? But I honestly feel like my gifts are my gifts because there's a joy in sharing what our gifts are. As I'm going through here, there's questions, and I love it because it encompasses a lot of what my life is, right? I'm still the intuitive, still doing intuitive readings, and it's folded into my coaching. And I feel like these questions encompass that. They go into all the various roles I've traveled through my business of being intuitive. So let me just get to it. I'll cover as many as I can without keeping you on the line for too long. The first one is, if you weren't blessed with being an intuitive, what career do you think you'd have? I feel like at this point, I know myself well enough to know that I would be in technology. If you had asked me this question 10 years ago, I would have said, oh, similar to what I'm doing, social working, only I'd have the degree, which is actually what I said I wanted to be when I was a kid. But I feel like everyone is intuitive. So my blessing of being intuitive would still be there. And I understand the reason she asked it this way is because I make my living as an intuitive, whether it's in the coaching or whether it's in the direct reading or consulting with businesses. That's how Vicky Baird coaching stays open. I feel like I would be in technology. I love it so much. I love how it helps our lives. I love the connectivity of it. I love the possibility of it. And I've been blessed to work with a few programmers when they're writing and doing all their brilliant coding. And I'm over here saying, okay, but this is the picture I see. How can you get there through coding? And that has given me an insight to how exciting it is and how pretty similar it is to the work that I do when I'm giving a reading or participating in a growth of a company. I feel like programmers are accessing their intuition or designers are accessing their intuition, and therefore it would be a perfect fit because I just love the technology. One of my favorite things to do is work with a smaller business to optimize their technology so that they're not working as hard. So you're not pounding as many hours into things. And I feel like I have an insight to this because when I first started working and having my own business, yes, the internet was there, but it wasn't there in the connective way it is now with platforms and CRMs and the ability to, connect with somebody all over the world. So I've seen every avenue of that. I've seen the paper newsletters. Oh, I'm dating myself here. I've seen the very beginning of websites to be able to reach out to people. I've seen the build the email list, which by the way, you can do. Go to vickybaird.com. There's going to be announcements made on there before they're made on social media for all the courses and everything that I have coming out. So I would definitely be in technology. I feel like I'd still be blessed with being an intuitive, but if I didn't hang my shingle out, I would be working still in the development of that area. How do you determine what needs to be said or what may be trivial, if there is such a thing? And I love that she put that in there. And also, can you just shut everyone out for me time? This has changed over the years. In the beginning and doing sessions, I would say whatever came through because I hadn't yet harnessed the ability to assess what is information for Vicky so that I can help guide a person to their highest joy and what is, perhaps impactful. Like, what does the person need to hear? What I will say is over the years, I have learned to distinguish what is important for the other person to hear by a feeling that happens in my body. If you can imagine like having two funnels running through me, and one funnel, as it comes down, it usually goes through my heart space, will go out to the person, and the other funnel will flow to me. So I can feel that information coming through and what needs to be said and what's for me to use to guide the person. Because it may be just filler information if I'm saying it to them, or what happens most often, especially in coaching, I will see and feel the potential of the person and where they're heading, but they're not ready for that yet. They're not ready for me to say it. So that information flows to me and my intelligence, and I'll write notes down about remember to come back to this. It will be important in like 2 more sessions. And my highly intuitive clients call me on this. They're like, "You knew this, didn't you?" And I said, "Well, yes, But I also felt like we had to move these other blocks or clear up some fears or belief systems before we could get to that. Because what I see happens in traditional coaching, we'll put quotes around that, but traditional life coaching, it's more of a, okay, here's your goal, let's hit it, and let's celebrate the fact that we just got a goal done. Well, that's fine, but if you do not excavate the belief systems or the challenges or the blocks that are already there, well, you're going to circle back to it in about 6 months. And whatever that person has accomplished in setting their goals will not be sustainable because you didn't look at the unstable foundation that was underneath them. Everyone is capable of achieving their goals and what they set for intentions. That is not the issue here. The issue is there a strong foundational support in order to have longevity and, a continuation of these skill sets? We've all, I think, been forced at some point because of life or external factors to get something done rather than build the systems and the structure that's needed for the continuation of success. So I feel intuitively, is this now or is this later? And that really helps. And that's often why I feel like people who come to me who have done coaching with others will say this isn't like other coaching. And it's because I really care about you as a person. I want those goals to be met because you want those goals. But I care that we are creating someone who has a joyful life, someone who knows themselves so well that maybe those goals will change or maybe bigger ones will show up. And that's really exciting to me. I care the fact that you want to grow your income, but I care more about the fact that you will be happy while you're growing that income. And oftentimes, especially those who own their own business or executives, they're not used to that. They're used to the push, push, push and not the hang on. I want to hear how this relates to a conversation you had with your mother when you were 12. And they're like, WTF, why are we going there? And I'm like, that's one of the things of how do I determine what needs to be said? Because if I felt that and didn't address it, first of all, it would drive me bonkers. It would keep circling around like that kid that goes, mom, 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 mom. But second of all, I'm not helping to create that sustainability of you as a soul and a person. And that's what's really important to me. So, can I shut everyone out for me time? I'm really good at this. I would suspect that I am better at this than most people in the world. And I'm not saying that from an elitist place. It's because I had to. When I first opened up and realized what all this stuff was, I realized just how much I was carrying. And likely some of you are becoming aware of this right now. I realized that I was drowning in other people's energy and their yuck and their fears. There was a point in my life when, my late husband was so sick and finances were ridiculously tight and the kids were going through things. And I was just so overwhelmed that I decided, no, I can't take on the pain of everybody who comes to see me and still have a business. And what I realized in doing that was I created the space I had been striving for in meditation, that calm head, the no thought, which throw that out. There's always going to be thought. You may have a moment of peace where you're like, oh, wow, I have a really calm head right now. But if you have no thought, well, you may be in transition between your physical body and your non physical body. So you have other stuff that you need to focus on. I can shut it out for me space. And I learned a long time ago that my body has to move in order for that to happen. So I figured out that by walking and just letting my head go wherever it wants to go, that helped. But then I discovered repetition in like strength training or in, workouts and things. That's where Justin was so brilliant in he's my personal trainer and buddy, best buddy, handing it over to him to say, you tell me what to do. And I only had to count to 12 because he lies. You'll do 13 or 14 reps. So you still have to count if you don't want to do 13 or 14 reps. And I realized then, oh, this is how I do it. This is how I am in total Vicky space. And you can do that too. I don't see it as shutting people out anymore. I did in the beginning, and that was for survival. What I see it as now is charging my battery, as filling myself up, and yes, as building bone density and muscle definition. It's about my physical health, but it's more about my mental and emotional and spiritual health. So think about how you could do that. And you may have to shut that door. You may have to be like, no, this is me time initially with a little bit of an edge to it. And then it will ease to be like, absolutely not. I do nothing else until I focus on myself. Now, I'm not a morning exerciser. I am a 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. exerciser. That's when I'm most full of energy to do that. So my morning practice to help support this is my journaling. It is my meditation, a good 5 minutes in there, which is usually, yes, we know, holding a cup of coffee. That is just my soul energy. I don't even think it's about physical energy. So, next question. Have you ever made a mistake in coaching that came back to haunt you? I won't say it came back to haunt me, but what it did do was come back to enlighten me. And this was actually recently. I felt that the person I was coaching with was becoming too dependent on my movie screen, on my ability to see what was in their best interest moving forward in their life. This is a tricky one because companies hire me for this reason, and it's very clear when companies hire me for this reason. I am literally their movie screen, and I go into the relationship that way. This is what I see. You make the decisions with what I see, and I'll help you tweak them, and then you run with it. But it's very different when I'm doing individual coaching because I do not want anyone to be dependent on me for what I see about their life experience. Because I want everyone to feel so sure of themselves that they love their life so much, and that goes out in a ripple effect. It makes no sense for people to become codependent with my intuitive abilities. I don't like that. I don't like it when other readers do that. So I could feel this happening. And we had moved through some pretty significant emotional trauma on her part and some baggage and boundaries issues and all that. She was doing phenomenal work. And then it became not helpful any longer. The part that I made a mistake in, and I owned this with her and I apologized and I have since created it, is I didn't give enough time. I didn't ease into the ending. I kind of pulled the Band-Aid off. It was not my intention to do that, but when I met with her energy of trying to hook in and hold me more, I had a defensive reaction. I'm human. It was kind. I didn't say, "Get the hell out," or anything, but I said to her, "We are not in an energy right now that is supportive of you. I want to help you not be in this, but I also will not renew a contract for a year." She was on a year contract. "I will not renew this for a year. I'm okay to renew it for 2 months, and we will work on this." Well, she couldn't hear that. What she heard was, "I'm out of here. I don't wanna work with you anymore." And I have clarified this and had conversations and have very lovely feelings towards each other. She knows I'm here if she wants to renew coaching, but she also knows the parameters of the coaching. And part of this was I was becoming clear in my own structure of my coaching to have more boundaries on there. It's difficult because I love my clients so much and I want to be that soft place for them. I am that soft place for them. But I cannot allow in good conscience for me to become a guru. That will not happen on my watch. But it came back to haunt me because I felt terrible. I felt sharp. I felt rude and I didn't deliver it well. But that's how you learn. You go back and you realize, okay, that conversation did not go well. I want to have clear, kind conversations. So I've changed that. Now I'll say to people, okay, we have 2 more sessions. What would you like to accomplish in those 2 more sessions? Would you like to renew? If we renew, this is what it's going to look like. And it's working out well, and people have appreciated it. So I'm grateful to her, and I let her know that too. So it's no longer haunting me, but I had to have quite a few of those walks and Vicky talks to shift how I was being. So along those lines, what's your biggest challenge as an intuitive? I love people. I really love people. I feel for people. Well, not for them, I feel of people because I can't feel for you. I can feel of you and I can empathize. And my biggest challenge is exactly what I was talking about. I want to be that soft space. I want to be that understanding space you didn't get in childhood. I want to be that encourager of all your dreams while creating some systems and some boundaries and helping you to feel more empowered in your life. And it's not always easy for me to be that person who has to, as we've called it for those of us with me and coaching for over the years, do that kick in the choochie boomy. It takes me a long time to get there because I understand where the pain is coming from. I feel the person's pain, their sadness, their abandonment, their dejection. I feel all of that, but I am not of best service to get lost in that either. But sometimes it's incredibly difficult for me to be the one that says, yeah, okay, but you're the one creating this. How do you want to change that? So that's been my biggest challenge, learning that I am not of service if I'm joining you in your soup. So, when did you first become interested or realize you were intuitive? Oh, I have often joked that when my mother passed, I was 29. That was an awesome Saturn return, got to tell you. And I think she smacked me on the head on her way out the door and said, go ahead and do that thing you did as a kid. I became interested because 2 things. One, I was breaking out in hives and rashes and having issues and just convinced it wasn't mine. Like I was somehow detoxifying for those around me, but I didn't have the words. I didn't even know what the word intuitive meant. I didn't know it existed. So I became interested because I had this deep sense within myself that these hives were a reaction to someone else's energy. And I did eventually figure it out. Now, the second thing was my middle stepson had a difficult time with the mother he chose in this lifetime, and traditional therapy was not working. And someone suggested I take him to an intuitive. And when I took him, he was 11, he was not going to go by himself. So when I took him, I sat there observing, being the quiet person in the room, and then thinking, well, what the heck? She's not doing anything that I ever haven't done. Doesn't everybody have a movie screen that they're looking at? I really thought everybody did. So that helped me become interested in this because I wanted to understand how best to help my kids and how to, stop itching so much from those damn hives. So it shows up in some very interesting places. So in relation to that, how old were you when you started seeing spirits? And how old were you when you started taking what you saw and felt seriously? I love that this is 2 different questions. Well, it's one question, but broken up. I started seeing spirits when I was very young, but in my family, it was not encouraged. And I realized afterwards After my mom had passed and I started going into all this stuff, oh, wait a minute. She knew this stuff. She felt this stuff. And she didn't want to talk about it either because we had this great closet in our hallway of the house and it was deep. It went in and then it angled. So it was like an L shape. And I used to hide out in there and read my books and made like my little getaway. There were a lot of kids in the house, a lot of energy that was difficult for me. And, there was abuse there. So I would hide out, and there were some lovely moments of being left there. Like they knew to leave me if I was in there, just leave me in here with my book. It was also really hard to find a place to yourself in the house. So but what happened was over time, as I was in there, and now I understand I was in there, I was meditating, I was opening up my energy field, I was daydreaming, which now I recognize was seeing movie screens, intuitive movie screen rather. But there were days where I would say, Mom, can we get those black energies? And they were shadows. They weren't negative, but they were shadows. Can we get them out of the house? They're going in my closet and I don't like them there. And she would say to me, We don't talk about those things, Vicky. And I'm like, Are you kidding me? That was around 10, 12 years old. When did I start taking it, what I saw and felt seriously? Well, that was after some great encouragement from some friends who are, I'm happy to say, still my friends today and my sisters, and also a friend who passed. And part of her experience of transitioning, I was, blessed to be part of because my intuition said to get your butt there. And then I helped her cross. And I didn't know what the heck I was doing, but I saw the physical results in front of me and realized I better learn and I better learn quickly because I don't know what this is. I was never afraid of it. I'm grateful for that now. I think some of that goes to my personality of let's just dig in and find out what we need to do here. And some of it was I was knee deep in it while still raising kids, while having a marriage that was a little rocky at the time and running a business. I didn't have time to be afraid. I just had to do it. So, other question. Do you find it helpful to combine your intuitive skills with the conscious circuitry work that when I'm coaching someone? Absolutely. So, the conscious circuitry work is where I help to move the neural pathways. And we do this through feeling your body, through statements, through breathing, sometimes some tapping, but mostly reconnecting ourselves, your brain, your soul, and your humanness all together, right? So our brains are amazing and they are giant pains in the you know where. I have kids who listen to this podcast, so I try to walk that line of respecting language. They're a pain in the chuchi bumi, our brains, and they're amazing. They can be changed. So when I'm working with someone and doing the conscious circuitry work, which is pretty defined. I mean, we center in, we connect the dots, we clear out old wiring, and we create new wiring. So there's steps to it. And when I'm coaching someone and I feel that block, like they want to move past it, but they don't know how. And then I feel or see that it's in their brain. I'm like, okay, you want to release this? And it's easy. It can be very emotional for the person who's processing, but I feel like people like the active aspect of it. I can't do it for you. You have to do the statements and the breathing. I give you the statements, but you have to do the breathing. And it's like NLP work and, EFT, emotional freedom technique. I basically took ingredients from everything I know and threw them in together and called it conscious circuitry because I want you to be conscious about your circuitry. And again, because I can teach you this and then you can go off and you can employ it during your day, right? Like if you feel a block come up, you could do a very simple statement of, I understand you, brain, and I know that this is a block that you feel. I would love for you to release it, and I'm now giving you permission to release it, or something along those lines. You don't have to be, you don't have to follow a strict regimen. You do need to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth because that's where the brain accesses it and allows you to release it. I find it very helpful. And what it also, using my intuitive abilities, what it does is it allows, again, for me to see where it's stuck. Very often we look at today and this is, I'm just not doing this right. And then I look at it and I'm like, okay, but this got installed when you were 19 and a half. And would you like to go uninstall that program and install the program of your 48-year-old self now? Usually people say yes. Do I believe everyone has the potential to be intuitive? I believe everyone is intuitive. I believe everyone has this as their first sense. I know it. I know it. I know that it's not always encouraged or even known about. Like I said, I had no clue what all this stuff was until it became such a force in my life that I had to pay attention to. So I know everybody does. And that's part of the reason that this podcast has information on knowing yourself so well. Because once you do that, and once you look at the reasons your brain may be giving you for blocking or not believing in yourself, the intuition goes pop, 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 and it just rises to the top. So I believe everybody has it. It's not even about potential. You have the potential to be more intuitive. You have the potential to develop your skills. Mine are still going strong. Like there are days where I'm like, what is that? I don't know what that is. What is that feeling? And then I have to get quiet and pay attention and say, what is this? And then I have to create systems in order to, and yes, they are systems. You will not develop your intuition by just saying, oh, gee, let me be more intuitive. You have to do the work. So, yes, everybody is. How has your experience working with the other side, those who have passed, impacted your experience as a widow? And has this changed how you respond to people who come to me? Well, I no longer come to you. I no longer do the mediumship readings unless it's during a coaching session and someone shows up because the relationship that maybe that it was the relationship that has created some of the pain that my client is working through. So if that soul comes through, I will give a message. I always make sure it's okay to my client. But it's, you know what it's impacted more is my knowing that I want to learn as much as I possibly can in this lifetime without pressure, with joy, with explanation, with expansion. I want to learn all of that because I see the souls who have crossed working their process too and continuing to learn and looking at where they could have done a little bit more in this lifetime. It's not from a judgment or a should place. It's more like, oh, I had that opportunity and I chose to sit and, you know, numb out with TV or social media or alcohol or whatever the line was, staying too busy. Well, I have learned more from those who have crossed that helps me to live more here because you continue to learn on the other side, but we learn more by being here on the earth of the earth plane, the physical plane. There's no contrast on the other side. There's just an incredible desire to grow and learn, which is an amazing thing. Shouldn't have used the word just there. It is an amazing thing. But we actually learn best through contrast. The contrast can be I had such a lovely weekend, which I really did. I learned how to make dumplings, gluten-free dumplings this weekend. And that's one of the things that there it may not be talked about, that's how you develop your intuition, but when I go into classes like that, I know when I'm paying attention to ingredients and to learning, to expanding my capacity to learn, my intuition also grows. I don't have to be sitting in meditation for 2 hours. This gal is not going to sit in meditation for 2 hours. It would not be fair to those around me who wanted to sit in meditation for 2 hours. I am not going to take a bunch of classes where I have to hear all about angels and spirit guides and manifestation, all that. I'm not going to do that. I know me. That is not my best. I learn best in activity. As I'm learning about these dumplings, I'm stretching myself along with the dough because I don't like to not know things. And over these last 2 years, I have worked very diligently to be okay with the fact and even be excited about the fact that I don't have to know anything. That is actually back to the question of what is my biggest challenge as an intuitive. When people come to you or when they hear you, they're intuitive, that you make your living as an intuitive and you live in this world that way, that you know everything. And that's not what intuition is. Intuition is a brilliant guide to the information because we are not just here to be energy beings, we are here to be physical. So, as I'm taking this dumpling class and as I'm expanding, what it's helping me to do is be more intuitive. So, if you want to develop your skill sets as somebody who perceives energy, can read energy, go plant a garden, go take a class, go for a bike ride, kinesthetic action, right? What I've learned from the other side that's also helped me feel more as being, I don't like being a spider. So, as being someone whose relationship ended because he croaked, well, physical ended relationship ended because he croaked. I have learned to really love life and to really appreciate it, which means boundaries with other people, just knowing myself more. Let's see, one more. Oh, I love this one. How do I learn to get my schnitzel together? How do I learn to get my shit together? By asking yourself what is comprised of that poop pile. The First of all, I if you asked me that in a session, I would say, well, we need to know what's in that pile of manure. What do you mean by get your shit together? Like, what do you mean? That's a vague statement. I don't know what that means. What shit do you need to get together? Do you need to clean your closet? Do you need to get your finances in order? Are you putting up with relationships that aren't fantastic? Are you feeling like you want to eat better, but you keep buying the junk? Like, what kind of shit do we need to get together? And then I would say, let's look at what it is you would like your shit to be. What do you want to look at when you say, I've got my shit together? What does that mean? And how do you feel once you've got your stuff together? We have to look at those things. So by focusing on having everything together, you may be putting too much pressure on yourself for things to be perfect. That is not possible. So then we could look at once we got all your stuff together in the middle of the room, what do we want to do with it? What do you want life to look like? You have to have some kind of intention, some kind of goal. Where are you headed here, kiddo? And then how would you like to feel once you get there? And then we reverse engineer. But you have to look at what that means. We use too many blanket statements. I want to feel better. What does that mean? Like, dig into the question of how do I get my shit together? What is my shit? Well, my shit is that I'm allowing other people to determine what I do on a daily basis. What does that mean? Well, I want to do this for myself, but when my spouse says they'd rather me do this, I go ahead and do that. Well, what does that look like? Why do I do that? Well, I'm a people pleaser. Why am I a people pleaser? Well, I learned very young that that's how it would keep things calm. Why did I need them to be calm? Well, the house was very chaotic. Why was the house chaotic? Well, dad had a very stressful job and mom didn't like him being gone all the time. Or I had a parent who was single and had to support the whole household, and there was a lot of stress there. Okay, so with that, we can't go back and change what you experienced then, but you are still living it today. And what we start with is listening to yourself with one thing. We don't do your whole pile that's in the middle of the room. It's too much. You will walk away from it. So we have to look at how do I get this one thing to be where I'd like it to be? And that could be that you sit with your tea, your coffee, your water, your smoothie, whatever, first thing in the morning and you take a couple breaths. That's it. That's it. Then you celebrate that you did that. And then we move to the next thing in the pile. Too often, it's both vague and it's too big of a pile. So our system and your subconscious and your doubt take over, and then you just don't do it. You avoid it. The next podcast coming up is about procrastination. That might help. These are some brilliant questions. Keep them coming. I love it because I am someone who can go into a topic, espouse on a topic, give you feedback and all that kind of stuff. Once I have the topic, coming up with the topic myself, I know that sounds weird, being 213 episodes in, but I take all my topics from you people, from conversations in coaching, from what I'm learning, and also from things like this. So the questions. So keep them coming. I love this. And it also felt like I got to visit with each person who asked it. Send me those questions. Vicky Baird Coaching on all the platforms of what you would like to hear about and learn about. And if it's in my understanding, I'm happy to go there. Thank you so much for being a part of this episode, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you for listening to this episode of Intuition, Your Success Compass. I appreciate you being here. If you would like more information about developing your intuitive skills, removing those blocks, and creating the life that feels the most successful to you, then head on over to vickybaird.com. That's VICKIBAIRD.com. And check out the courses, the groups, and the Spaces app that will allow you to be part of our community and know about upcoming events and specials. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next episode.